All right, here we go. Practice for our final exam. Remember, the way that you're going to get your points is you show up and you do your best. Let's talk about this information here on number 1. Which square root would be classified as rational? If you remember, rational is a fancy way to go ahead and talk about a fraction. So it's really asking you which number here can you write as a fraction? And obviously it would be answer A because the square root of 9 is equal to 3, and you can change that to 3 over 1. A rational is a fraction. All right, number 2, find the value of x. We did this at the very beginning of the year. We remember that a triangle, the interior angles are all equal to 180 degrees. So all you have to do is add up all of your angles and set it equal to 180. So you can start off with your x plus your x plus 39 plus your 43, and that's going to be equal to 180. So x plus x is obviously 2x plus, this is pretty close to 40. So if I think about it as 40 plus 43, that's 83, but that's not really 40, it's 1 less, so it's not really 83, so it's 1 less, so that'd be 82. And I'll give you a moment to go ahead and solve that on your own. Again, you're trying to find the value of x. They could extend that by saying, what are the angle measurements then? This one is obviously the value of x, so maybe whatever number that is. But this one, you'd have to do x plus 39. I remember when we did a quiz here, some of you forgot to mention what the actual angle would be. So if you subtract 82 from both sides, it's almost like subtracting 80, which would give you 100. Oops. But it's really subtracting 82, so it would not give you 100. It would give you 98. Divide by 2. So x would be equal to 49. So again, what we did before was, okay, this is 49 degrees. This one here is 49 plus 39 degrees, which is really like 49 plus 40, which would be 89, but it's 1 less, so this would be 88 degrees. But it's not asking that, it just simply wanted the value of x. Number 3, give the solution of the system of linear equations. The great thing about this is it's already graphed for you, so technically it's already solved for you. You're looking to see where they cross. Please put your pencil at the solution where they touch. That's where they cross. That is your ordered pair right here. Now remember, we go ahead and do the x value first, which is 2, and then the y value is next, which is 3. 2, 3. Describe the steps in solving the equation. So this could be a written part where you actually have to describe it in words, or it could just be solving it and then selecting the answer. So let's go ahead and do it. We'd say, okay, subtract 12 on both sides. Those would be the words that you would write. So that gives me negative 4 over 5x is equal to negative 9. And then how do I get rid of that fraction? Am I going to divide? No, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. I'm going to multiply both sides by, what's that fancy word? Starts with the letter R, reciprocal, which would be negative 5 over 4. Don't worry about the x. So that's going to give me x is equal to, on the right side here, and negative times a negative is a positive. So I've got 45 over 4. Now, if it didn't want an actual, improper fraction answer, you could always change it to a mixed number. But again, it's describing the steps. So you would say subtract 12 on both sides, multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is negative 5 over 4. Ooh, we did this somewhat recently. Go ahead and complete your two-way data table. Shows the results over there around the sides. Interpret the marginal frequencies for the survey. So find and interpret. So it's kind of giving you some of the keywords there again, the marginal frequencies, which is the outside. And if you remember, all we did was a bunch of addition. So if we add across, that's simply going to be 96. If I add across, that would be 68. I can add down to give me 103. I can add down to give me 61. And the way I find my last box, again, it's either or. I can go top to bottom, so the 96 plus 68, or the 103.61. And I think that would be the easier option, which would be 164. So then it says interpret the marginal frequency. So what can you get out of this data? What do those numbers actually mean? And it kind of talks about this stuff on the outside. So the 164, you can talk about, okay, those are the amount of people that were actually surveyed. Sports here, you got categorized involved, not involved. So you can say 103 students play sports while only 61 do not play sports. Or you can come over here to the music program. You can say only 96 students are in the music program, where 68 are not in the music program. Now remember this information here, 62 means they play sports and music. So they could come up with an extra question of what is the percentage of students playing sports and playing music? And that would be your 62 divided by the total number of students surveyed, 164. So depending on the question is what the level of difficulty it may be. But again, we just need to fill it out and interpret it on this one. All right, scatter plot. Again, doing that somewhat recently. Describe the relationship shown by the data. What are those words that we used somewhat recently? Now, when it goes uphill, what word did we use there? Yes, positive. Because going downhill would be the negative. And is it linear or nonlinear? It appears to be linear. So it's a positive linear relationship. Sometimes it's called a correlation, but positive linear is what we want. You can use relationship or correlation, so you write whichever word you like. Since it said describe the relationship, maybe the relationship is the better option there. All right, evaluate the expression, write your answer in scientific notation. Now here, what we've done somewhat recently again is we took our numbers 8.3 and multiplied it by the 3. So again, if you have to, go to the side. Many of you can just do that in your head though. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 8 is 24, a decimal point goes there. So we know that that's going to be too big though. But we'll get there in just a moment. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my exponents. 3 plus negative 6 is going to be a nice negative 3. Now remember, this number is too big, so we need to move the decimal to 2.49, which means my exponent has to move. Look at your number line up there. Find the negative 3. Your two options are negative 4 or negative 2. And try and remember how I shared with you which one is the correct. I only moved it once, so that's why we're moving to negative 4 or negative 2. My statement was, if it's a big number, take the bigger exponent, which would be the negative 2 exponent. If it was a smaller number, I would take the smaller exponent. Yay! Right, which number is greater? To be able to do that, you would actually have to go ahead and change this into an actual integer, decimal, whatever type of number that makes sense to you. So this is actually really the between idea. So the square root of 120 is between what two numbers? Trying to have you guys think. Which one is it? Yeah, it's between 10, because that's a square root of 100, and 11, because that's a square root of 121. But remember, it's really negative 10 and negative 11 because of the negative sign there. Now think about this here. The negative 120 is really close to the 121. So maybe this is really like maybe negative 10.9. And this negative 10 and 1/5, 1/5 can be changed into a decimal. That's really negative 10.2. and you're trying to come up with the number that is greater. Which number is greater? And this is where some students make mistakes. Negative 10.2, is that greater than or is that less than negative 10.9? That is greater than. Big greater than sign. Crocodile, so on. All right, number 9, translation here. We've done a lot of different types of geometry pieces of information. Translation, again, is just to the right and down. So I'm going to take the M and go right 2, 1, 2, down 1, 2. So this is my M prime. P goes right, 1, 2, down 1, 2. This is my P prime. N is right, 1, 2, down 1, 2. This is N prime. But if you notice, that's not all that's required of me, because it says reflect the image in the y-axis. So the y-axis, it should really say across the y-axis. This is really when we just did our counting. Unfortunately, this grid they gave me is not really good for the counting, because the M has to count to the y-axis 1, 2, 3. Reflected on the other side 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be M double prime. I'll give you a moment to go ahead and try and reflect the P prime and the N prime. So that definitely should have been enough time for you. So the P prime is actually the easier one. That's just 1, 2 to the y-axis. So it's 1, 2 over here. So that's my P double prime. Now the N, that's the one that's going to be a little bit more tricky. That's 6 spaces away. So I'm really going to have to estimate it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 right here. Go ahead and take your straight edge and connect that, please. I got it. Oh. So again, those were the 2 easier transformations. Remember, the rotation were a little bit more challenging for you guys. All right. A map of your neighborhood is represented on the grid. Describe a translation of your walk from school to your house. Now, translation, remember, that's just a simple movement like I did on the previous one. Translate is just up, down, left, right, up, down combination. So it wants you to get from your school to your house. So up, down, left, right. Now, you actually have 2 different ways that you can do this. You can start off by stating the up-down part and then the left-right, but it's better to do the left-right because remember, that is the x idea. So we're going to go right, which is at -3 on the x. So looking up here, I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to temporarily get there. So I'm going to go right 6 units. That also can be represented in the arrow notation, which was XY, arrow notation, X value is being increased by 6 because we're going to the right. Then I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be up 5 units, which would really be a Y plus 5. Because again, the up is the positive motion. Woohoo! Super smart. Wait a minute, they said 7 units? I'm confused. Ah, because I stopped here. Haha, sneaky. I went to the digits here, not to the actual house. So it was actually supposed to be here. Some of you are like, silly, Mr. Mario. Look, I did the lazy way like you lazy lying teenagers. There we go. Much better. Some of you are probably trying to raise your hand and talk to the video, but, silly kids. All right, number 11. The graph shows the relationship between temperature Y in degrees Fahrenheit and altitude X in thousands feet. Find and interpret the slope of the graph. Write an equation of the line. We have done this many times where we can find our slope pretty easily. Interpret it, not too bad. Write in an equation, which is really requiring M and B. The good news is you're already going to find your slope on part A, which is the slope of M, which happens to be going downhill, so I can already predict that. Interpreting it, that's using the words on the outside, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Ooh, I can already jump to my part B, my y-intercept if I wanted to, which is right here at 0.75. So the starting point is at 75. And that's, remember, temperature, degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so they actually give you 2 points already, which you can then use your slope formula if you wish. Otherwise, you'd probably just be doing your rise over your run counting. Again, this is not required because a lot of you would maybe do your little right triangle idea and come up with your rise and your run. Now, the run is easy, but the rise maybe not so much. So let's go ahead and do the best we can. Again, this right side one would be the x2, y2. And then here would be your x1, y1, because you see it first, and then you see this one second. So my y2 is a 40, and my y1 is 75. My x2 is a 7, and my x1 is a 0. So that would give me a negative 35 over 7, which would be a negative 5, or you can say negative 5 over 1 if you really wanted to. So I'm actually going to go ahead and finish off my equation first, and then I'll go back to the interpretation. So my equation would be y is equal to negative, and actually when I write my equation, I would prefer the negative 5x, and then plus 75. The interpretation is a sentence that you're going to write. It's relating to the temperature and the altitude thousands of feet. Remember, it is decreasing, which means your temperature is decreasing as, or you can say the altitude is increasing, so the temperature is decreasing. Altitude is increasing, temperature is decreasing. Something like that. Use your words, whichever order you like better, but actually we do talk about the x part first. As the altitude is increasing, remember how the numbers are going up as you go to the right, the temperature is decreasing because the line is going downhill. That's the interpretation. Solve the system of linear equations. Some of you might just be doing a guess and check on this multiple choice problem where you take your letters or your numbers from x and y and plug it in and see if you start working it out. Others might want to go ahead and do your substitution method, which looks like this. And I draw it to my y because it says y equals. So I would have an x plus 1 is equal to a 2x minus 1. If you remember, the way I taught you when you have variables on both sides is move the smaller variable, which is my 1x. So I subtract 1x on both sides. So that gives me 1 is equal to 1x, or just x subtract 1. You can switch sides if you wish, which is very helpful. I add 1 to both sides. So my x is equal to 2. Go ahead and plug that into your first one that we've already worked with, where it's y is equal to x plus 1. So y is equal to 2 plus 1, which means the y is equal to 3. My ordered pair is in the form of x, y, which is going to be my 2, 3. Not bad, not bad. Oh, this one's going to be nice and easy for you guys. Evaluate the expression, which means just do some basic math. So, ooh, do you remember? Let's see. If I have a square root and a square, what happens to them? Or if you'd like to, you can just do order of operations, do the stuff inside the parentheses. The square root of 16 is 4. And when you square a 4, you get 16. So my original question is, what happens to the square root and the square? They cancel each other out. So I've got 16 plus 16, which is simply 32. Evaluate the expression. Oh, remember this is everybody participates. So that's going to be a 5 squared. Got a little 1 there for the n. So 1 times 2, n squared. Or just 5 squared n squared, which is 25 n squared. Very nice, very nice. Solve the equation. This is very similar to our inequalities that we did somewhat recently. The left side just stays the same. I put a little slash through my z's because sometimes they look like 2's. Distributive property, we've been mastering that with our polynomials. I've got 6z and a 24. Wait a minute, they look identical. If I subtract 6z on both sides to confirm it, I'm going to get 24 equals 24. So it is a special answer, and that is actually true. So which special answer is it? It's obviously not no solution. We've seen 2 special answers that are true. You can think about the all real numbers idea, but that was more along the lines of our inequalities, which means all the numbers on the number line work. This one was a little bit more of the idea infinitely many solutions. But if it had all real numbers, then of course you would select that one. Infinitely many solutions. Not many like small. All right, this one, I can't remember if we actually did something exactly like this, because this is actually a proportion where it says, I've got my triangle, they are congruent, approximately similar, and I'm trying to find this measurement here. So you actually have a few ways to set this up. This might be a little bit more 7th grade, high school type information. So the way that I set it was, okay, 54 is to 84, because they're on the same location. They share this common vertex here in the center. As 72. Now 72 and 54, they're in the same triangle, so they have to be both up there at the top. And that would be the x at the bottom, because that is the same piece of information there. So I did a 54 times x, which is cross multiplying, is equal to, and I just did my calculator. I really don't think they'd have numbers this big for you. So let's see here. I've got 84 times 72, 6048. If I divide by 54 on both sides, the value of x, which is side DE or ED, as they call it sometimes, I just divide by 54, and I get 112. Now, sometimes that might be in the form of, oh, look, it's right there, 112 miles. Very nice. But again, this one, so whatever. We'll try our best, because that's what I'm asking you to do again, is trying your best. Ooh, this is a nice one. We've seen this recently. It's really just basic counting. Remember, the number has to be between 1 and 10, 10 not included. So we just got to move it, count the bumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Man, that's a lot of counting. 7, 8, 9, 10. So my answer is 7.035 times 10. And I believe we counted 10 bumps, so it's got to be 10th power. Yeah, that was easy. What say you? You say that's the wrong answer? Oh, you are smart. Because again, it started off with the 0, which means it's a small number, which means it must be a negative exponent. Got some geniuses in here. All right, going along. Number 18, describe the relationship between the two quantities. So this time is increasing. What's happening to the value of the antique? What's happening with the dollars? So the answer form says that is actually increasing slowly. So notice how it's going up just a little bit. And then it increases rapidly as it gets further along in time. I guess the old stuff is more important, more expensive, maybe rare. That's why it's valued high. So again, describe the relationship. Just going to make a simple sentence. As the time is near, the dollar value is not that expensive or not that much. But as time increases, the value dollar-wise of the antique increases dramatically. So it's rapidly, something like that. Number 19, find the slope and y-intercept of the graph of the linear equation. We have done many problems like this. All I have to do is subtract 2x on both sides. And you know what? You do the rest. See what you got to do next. Yes, you already did that. So you got negative 2y equals negative 2x plus 18. All right, next step. Do your next step. Ooh, yeah, divide by negative 2. So it means y is going to be equal to x, subtract 9. So my slope is 1 or 1 over 1. My y-intercept is negative 9. So my slope is going uphill, kind of normal-like, and the starting point is at negative 9. If maybe they ask you to do the interpretation. Find the measure of the exterior angle. Now, you got a few ways to do this. I'm actually going to suggest that we rotate this problem. So you can just rotate your paper, and it might be easier to see. I like looking at it like this. Because if I can remember that a line here is 180 degrees, that means I can use some basic supplementary information. So hypothetically, if this is 50, what would this angle be? 130. But that doesn't really make sense based off of looks. So maybe it's the other way around. Maybe this is like 150, and this would be 30. Because again, this looks bigger, so that's got to be bigger. So that's the basic idea. If I can find this interior piece, then I definitely know my exterior piece. Or there's some other ways around it as well if I'd like to do it that way. So let me erase this information here, and let's go ahead and start it. And let me unrotate it for just a little bit, just so I can see the numbers better. Perfect. All right, so I know the triangle inside here is going to be 180, but it doesn't give me any information about this angle here. So what should I do? Do you guys remember something important? Ooh, maybe you do. That this outside exterior angle, 3x, is equal to these two pieces here. Because again, as I was trying to show you when it was sideways, is those two, the 3x and the question mark, are supplementary, which means it would be 180. So that means that these two pieces here are actually equal to this piece here. Because again, the information, the question mark, is already taken into question on both sides. So I could really just say, okay, x plus 21 plus a 60 and solve it from here. So let's do that. 3x is equal to x plus 81. Ooh, then I can do that. I could subtract x on both sides and go from there. So it gives me 2x is equal to 81. So I'm looking at my information. Ah, 63, not 60. Silly Mr. Mario. There we go. Yay! X is going to be 42. I'm tired. All right, so my answer is x equals 42, right? No, because again, I need 3x. It wants the measure of the exterior angle. So 3x, I got to plug it in. 3 times 42, that's 3 times 42 for the exterior angle. That's going to be 126 degrees. Yay, that's a lot better. Right, the drawing shows equal weights. So this is really an equation that you need to set up. Can of coffee weighs 20 ounces, so that's here. Each book weighs 36 ounces, so there's 2 books, so that's 36 times 2, which is 72. Remember, the balance here is the equal sign. What is the weight in ounces of 1 carton of salt? So I've got 2 cartons of salt, so that is my 2x. So I really just have an equation that I need to go ahead and solve. Actually, let me go ahead and switch sides while I'm here. Keep the order still. 20 plus 2x equals 72. Subtract 20 on both sides. 2x is equal to 52. Divide by 2. So that means x is going to be 26, which is 26 ounces for each carton of salt. Yeah. All right, what is the measure of angle 2? We got a few different ways to come up with this, but the best way was matching up with what type of description makes this true. We talked about our parallel lines with a transversal. Transversal, again, the T here means that it's cutting across the parallel lines. So it's really just corresponding angles. So 2 is simply 80 degrees. If it wanted angle 1, that would be 100 degrees. But what's the information? Do you remember? They're interior because they're the inside of the parallel, and they're on the other side of the transversal. So that would be alternate interior angles for measure of angle 1. But it really just wanted a measure of angle 2, and that's called corresponding angles, and those are also congruent. All right, write it in standard form. We've done this recently. So 2.5 times 10 to the negative 4th. Now remember, negative exponent means small number, so I put a bunch of zeros in the front. Actually, I want to put it down here. I'm going to write my 2.5 with a bunch of zeros in the front. Now it says move it 4 times, and I am going to get a small number, so make sure it starts with 0. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I don't need that one. So I've got 0 point, and then I've got 0.025. And that's called cubic centimeters, which is a volume. All right, small number, negative exponent, small number. Solve the system of linear equations. That again is very similar to the setup of the previous information we talked about just a while ago. You can go ahead and guess and check, or you can do your circle and substitution method. So just due to time, I'm going to tell you that number 24 should come out as 5, 6. So you do that on your own and see if you can get 5, 6. All right, number 25, find the missing length of the triangle. You got a few ways to do this problem here. It might be the Pythagorean theorem, or it might be a Pythagorean triple. So let's see if that is correct here. Okay, 25 and 15, those can both be divided by 5. So this would be a 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Oh, look at that. That's going to be a 3, 4, 5 triangle. So what's the missing side going to be? It's definitely not 4. Remember, we talked about that factor of 5. That's what we divided by. So your number actually has to be 20. If you had to, again, you can do your Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. The c is the hypotenuse, which would be the 25. The a squared, whichever one you want, 15. We're going to keep the b, I guess, the b. So this gives me 225 plus b squared is equal to 625. Subtract 225. B squared is equal to 400. So square root both sides. So b is equal to 20. Use the graph or table to write a linear function that relates y to x. So it just really wants m and b. I notice that I've got an ordered pair of 0, 0, which tells me that it is starting at the origin for my starting point, my y-intercept. So that y-intercept is just simply 0. And the way we did it again here was noticing what happens. This is an increase of plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. Here is a decrease of minus 9, minus 9, minus 9. So at least it's constant, which means it is obviously linear. And remember, it's rise over run. Rise, which is the y piece, over run, which is the x piece. Some of you messed this up previously because you mixed the numbers. So it's negative 9 over 5. So my equation would be y is equal to negative 9 over 5x. And I don't have to put anything at the back because I don't have to put plus 0 at all. Solve the system of linear equations. This one is not substitution method. This is elimination method. If you notice, the x's are already same digit, opposite sign. So it means I just go ahead and add them up. My x's will eliminate, which is my desire. My y's will combine to 1y, or just y, because 2 subtract a hidden 1 there is 1y. 9 subtract 7 is a 2. So the y value is 2. I pick one of the equations. I like the top one better. So x plus 2y equals 9. I'm trying to find my x value. Notice my y is 2, so I must do 2 times 2. So you can solve it from here to find your x, and then go ahead and put your answer in the form of an ordered pair. Your x value should come out as a 5 because you should subtract 4 on both sides. All right, just a few more. Evaluate the expression. You got many, many different ways to do this, and my suggestion is to actually go ahead and work at the denominator first. So I've got a 2 squared here, and then I've got a 5 plus a negative 3, which is another 2 squared. And hey, look at this. Anything divided by itself is 1. Or you can say it's really a 2 subtract 2, which is really a 2 to the 0 power, which is really a 1. Yay. Solve the equation. I believe that's a z there. I'm just going to change it to an x. I'd say you change it to an x as well. It makes it a little bit easier. Excuse me. So 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times negative 7x is negative 49x. Plus 19 equals negative 58. We combine our like terms. So I've got a negative 49x plus, again, these are both positive, so I'll just add them together. It gives me a 40. If we can get it to this point here, a lot of you are perfect at this level. We go ahead and subtract 40 on both sides. Negative 49x equals negative 98. Divide everything by negative 49. So it means x is going to be equal to positive 2. Find the volume of the sphere, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So our diameter is 8, so it means radius is equal to 4. Now, if you remember the volume of the sphere, that is volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So let's see. Volume is equal to 4/3. And my radius is 4. So our numbers aren't the greatest as they should be, but we'll do with what we can. Remember, I saved the pi for last, which is normally going to be 3.14. I'm going to go ahead and keep it divided by 3 for now. So 4 times 4 is 16, times another 4 is 64, times this 4 here in the front. So 64 is the cubed times 4 here. Go ahead and do that, please. So that should give me 256. And I'm going to ask you to finish this up on your own. Again, you can just do your division by 3. Whatever you get that for your answer, multiply that by pi, which is 3.14. Remember, your answer goes up here on top. Yay. All right. Evaluate, very similar to the one that we just saw previously. It would be 3 subtract 6 for the exponents, which would be a negative exponent, which means change it to a fraction to have a positive exponent. Now, they might leave your answer like this, or they may ask you to actually multiply it out. And we just did 4 to the third power on the previous problem, so that's 1 over 64. All right, last one. Yeah. Find the volume. You've got a cylinder. Cylinder, again, is just volume equals base times height. Now, remember, if it was a cone, that would be volume is equal to 1/3 base times height, because it took 3 cones to make 1 cylinder. But for this one, a little bit easier. I already got my radius there. Ooh, radius, I don't see that yet. That's because my base shape is a circle, pi r squared multiplied by the height. So I just simply plug it in. My radius, again, is 9, so 9 squared, and my height is 13. Now, if you remember, I went ahead and kept the volume, or sorry, the pi for dessert to the end. So 9 squared, just go to the side and do 81 times 13. Again, go ahead and multiply that using your elementary multiplication. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 8 is 24. Placeholder. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 8 is 8. Add that up, and you should get 1053 pi. To get your answer, it's about 3, so it means it's going to be over 3,000. So again, do 1053 times 3.14 pi. If we're lucky, it'll leave the answer in the form of pi, and you would not have to do that extra multiplication. They said it's approximately 3,300 something, so that's what you should get. All right, hopefully you're awesome. Yeah, got the final.